Do that. Hey, check, check. There we go. Hey, and welcome to another episode of Burning Questions, the MSCTA podcast about the medical marijuana industry in Mississippi. My name is Melvin Robinson, Executive Director of the Mississippi Cannabis Trade Association. Yeah, big things happening. Yeah, I am now the acting executive director and of the Mississippi Cannabis Trade Association. We focus on education, advocacy, and community. Please give us a look at mscta.org. And yeah, you can see some of the stuff that we do. This is our weekly simulcast that we do on Facebook and YouTube. And we are here today with a very special guest. But before I bring him on, I want to talk about the Lucky Leaf Convention coming October the 7th through the 8th to the Jackson Convention Complex. Lucky Leaf Expo is coming to Jackson, Mississippi. Explore more than 100 exhibitors, hear from a variety of speakers, and find out about everything being offered in the Mississippi industry and more at the Lucky Leaf Expo. You can register now at luckyleafexpo.com. Shout out to their team. They have been great so far. We're working on them with them on some marketing materials and everything like that. So yeah, make sure you are there. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in our guest today. Let's get him over. Boom, there we go. And as we always do every week on Burning Questions, I will allow you to introduce yourself and you can just go ahead.
Well, thanks, Melvin. Thanks for having me on the show tonight. Also, want to definitely thank you and the MSCTA for what you're doing for the Mississippi audience. So, thank you very much for that. Uh, my experience over the last 7 years, I've been in the cannabis space. I ran a public company for over 6 years, which it enabled me to work with teams all over the United States, helping them from startup all the way through operation, overcome some of their challenges, their hurdles, hopefully cut their learning curve down tremendously and avoid some costly mistakes. So I'm actually an individual who's got hands-on experience from the corporate world and the cannabis world combined. But thank you again, Melvin, for having me here tonight.
No problem. And your name is Terry Buffalo. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought it was up there.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're here now. We're gonna. So you do consulting now with your own firm, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, yeah, Buffalo Cannabis Consulting and everything like that. Yeah. So
Right. Buffalo
just so
Cannabis Advisors.
Buffalo Cannabis Advisors. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Correct.
So
Yes.
yeah. So let's just give the people a little bit of your background, in the industry and everything. Just a quick little run through.
Well, like I say, over the years working in the space, I've been able to work with people from licensing all the way through, the construction and operation, and then also all the way to selling their business at the end. Looking at the retail side, the pluses and minuses, the hurdles you're going to have to overcome in a sense with that, versus manufacturing versus cultivation, or if you're vertically integrated, how that can be an advantage. Of course, you're controlling your supply chain. So my biggest thing is the experiences and the mistakes I've seen over the past 7 years working with so many different clients to be able to hopefully bring some valuable information to help the Mississippi audience avoid those mistakes.
Oh yeah, great. And we're happy to have you here. And so what we were doing this week, we actually sent out your episode art for this
Uh-huh.
episode, telling people we're going to have a quick Q and A about everything. Well, not everything, but just some things in the Mississippi market once we've actually received our licenses. So we have businesses with licenses now, and a lot of people are saying, "Hey, what do I do now? I've been waiting on this for almost years now, and we did our application that got through. Now we have this license. What do we do?" So we took some questions, put up a email address that they could contact me at with some questions, and we're going to just bring some over and talk about them now. Is that all right?
That sounds good.
All right, great. All right, so we're going to get into our first question. And that is from Alex L. Alex asked, I was interested in opening a dispensary business in Mississippi. I want to get a little more information on what I should actually do after I get my license. So, yeah, that's one thing. Right now we have over 120 dispensary applications. Dispensaries are going to be some of the more popular businesses in the state when it comes to cannabis. So, yeah, a lot of people are asking that, like, what do I do? I have my license there and everything from there. So Terry, with your all of your expertise and everything, what's some of the things that they need to kind of think about after since they gotten their license?
So they just received their license. So we're going to talk about a dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
Will we? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure because there's a big difference between the three, by all means.
Oh yeah, oh
With a
yeah,
so I know the dispensary license just being issued then. So I know that they have their business plan. I know that they have their location, their design. But from that point, what is it going to be? 4 to 5 more months for they're going to have product available. So initially, I would be making sure I have the relationships with the suppliers, meaning the cultivators and also the manufacturers, so you'll be able to have products on your shelf. As you're going through this whole program, though, I would highly suggest to get your corporate affairs in order from day one. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen over the years in the business is people being so loose with their record keeping. So, what I would suggest, look at your corporation initially, make sure you have all your contracts in place, all your partnership, your loans, whatever. Make sure you can get a bank account set up now. Make sure you have insurance in place. So when you're up and operating, you have to start thinking about all your HR, your hiring, your training. You have to think about all your operational and also understand you've got to have a good set of SOPs, and they're always in the works. There's always new rules and regs coming out. So you're continually updating your SOPs. And the great thing about an SOP is your playbook. It's going to keep you from in compliance. It's also going to keep your operation and also help in training as you have turnover or if you're adding new individuals to your team. So that's some of the areas I would initially start with because, now the fun starts once you have the license and knowing you've got 4 to 6 months to have those doors open. It's kind of Katie bar the door, here we come, right?
yeah, yeah. So SOPs and everything. I know a lot of people, and I mean, extremely important part of the business and everything. And you're just talking about everything from like turnover to just how you're going to actually
Right.
run everything. I know a lot of people might wonder, like, what exactly would you sell in the dispensaries and everything? What, in your opinion and in your experience, how should a new dispensary owner go about that?
The one thing I've noticed, there's been a very lack in inventory control in dispensaries over my times and travels. And, the one thing you see, you have inventory that you're not turning, not selling, and inventory sitting on the shelf that's not turning is definitely costing you money. And so what you have to look at is you think about your initial products. What is your market, first of all? And look at the demographics. Now, there's companies out there of course, since Mississippi doesn't have any data on this right now, what I would suggest is go and look at some of the other states. Look at companies like BDS Analytics, Headset, New Frontier to understand the demographic of what consumers prefer at this point. Is it more pre-rolls? Is it more the edibles? And the beverages are coming on. But understand that, and then look at your demographics that you're going to be serving there in the Mississippi market. Again, what's their age? What's their income? And understand their consumer preference, and then start looking to stock your shelves with those type of products. The worst thing you want is just take every product that comes to your door because you're not going to sell it. If you have a company, let's say hypothetically has 10 flavors of edibles, maybe only 3 of those are selling. So why do you have all 10 of them on your shelf? Those other 7 line items are not being turned over, which is costing you money, and they also can go bad on you because most stuff has an expiration date, of course. And that's very hard. That's a delicate, Melvin, to give enough inventory, but also not have the excess. So that's why it's important to have a supply chain of relationships in order so you can get your product in a timely manner to replace your sold out inventory.
And that's one of those things, like you were just saying before, like building those relationships and getting to know your producers, getting to know your manufacturers, getting to really know
Right.
everybody that you're gonna be purchasing from.
Of course, and understand their supply chain, how often they deliver, etc. Because they only deliver on Mondays. You need to understand that they only deliver on Fridays. You understand, because again, if you're out of a product that's in demand, you're losing money. If you have products on the shelf that you're not selling, you're basically losing money.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a very
yeah.
delicate balance.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that seems so wild because I think a lot of people. Well, I don't want to say I think what a lot of people are thinking, but it seems to be the assumption that once this thing kind of kicks off and we have
Right.
all this different product and everything, like everything is just going to fly off of the shelves all of the time and everything like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, something you have to look at again is back to your demand. You have to look at, the population of Mississippi, and then break down who would qualify for some of the conditions in Mississippi to qualify for a medical card. And then from there, look at about a 3 to 5% adoption rate to understand what your demand is going to be for the product as an entire state of Mississippi.
yeah,
I heard some numbers, 100 to 120,000 registered medical patients is what they're estimating. So think about that. That's 120,000 for however many number of dispensaries, and understand where they're located. There's more heavily populated, dense population in some areas. Of course, they're going to have more volume than other ones in a sense. But you have to understand what's the actual market. It's not 3 million people,
yeah, yeah,
for
exactly.
the state of Mississippi.
Because those are going to be in that 3 million mark. You're going to have people that don't qualify. You're going to
Right,
have
right,
minors that wouldn't qualify, anything like that. So
right.
yeah, you'll have people that don't qualify. So
Of course.
it's definitely not that entire 3 million.
No, it's not. Yeah, if it's on the adult side, it's totally different, because then just 21 and older. But again, the medical, you just have to look at that slow adoption rate in general before it's
Yeah,
increasing your demand.
yeah. All right, thank you for that question, Alex. We're going to go to the second question
Okay.
now.
So
When setting up your books for your business, is it better to do it as a cash or accrual basis? That is from Jessica S.
thanks for the question, Jessica. eh, most of the dispensaries that they've started out were on cash basis, and as they found going forward, it would be best to be on accrual basis, because accrual is gap accounting. Uh, One of the most important things you can do starting your business, though, is make sure you have a very experienced cannabis accountant that can set up your books properly, because a lot of people don't quite understand the 280E effect. And so, again, I can't emphasize the importance of having good financial hygiene, is what I like to call it. Make sure you have your books in order from day one, because you have to know your numbers to be able to run a successful business. And some of the things I saw over the years, and I've worked with many companies, the financial hygiene was very sloppy. And they didn't really understand their cost of goods. They didn't understand the real overhead. They didn't understand the real impact of 280E. And so from day one, I would suggest getting that very experienced cannabis accountant to help work with you either directly as or also, or at least set up your books and help you close the books each and every month.
And for the people who aren't aware of 280E, I mean, it could be a whole episode on that itself, but
Of
just a
course.
quick, can you give like just a quick
Yeah,
overview of what it
of course.
actually is?
Well, in a dispensary, the 280 hits you the hardest, in a sense, because all you can write off is your cost of goods. You cannot write off your labor, your rent, your utilities, your marketing. Now, some people try to get fancy, we'll call it, or cute, in how they set up separate companies and try to run. I'll just say they're going to run the risk with the IRS. They come knocking on the door in general, but as a normal business, you would be able to write off your labor costs, your rent, your utilities, your insurance, etc. You're not able to do that and in the dispensary, because of that 280E. So basically, you're paying taxes on gross profit. So if you buy a product for $10, you sell it for 20, you're paying taxes on that $10. There's no other deductions.
Yeah, yeah, and we've mentioned that to people before. They didn't necessarily know about that ruling and everything. And if you're not in a state that would sell cannabis, you would
Of
not
course,
know that. So yeah, that's just
absolutely.
one of those things that we kind of wanted to make sure people know about, and they understand, like, hey, this is one of the things that you're going to actually be dealing with. And that's just for. And now, is that just for specifically dispensaries, or is that for
No, no.
all plant touching cannabis businesses?
Well, it affects all plant touching, but when you're in a grow facility or in the manufacturing, you have some expenses you can list. call it, include into your cost of goods to lower your taxable burden.
Mm,
That's where, again, back to that experience, a cannabis accountant is going to be so important, because you have to have your 471Cs, your worksheets in place, because you're going to get audited. Guarantee you that, and you better make sure you've got all the documents in place to be able to defend your stance on what you consider cost of goods.
yeah, yeah. The tax man cometh, and he's
Oh,
going to come.
there's no doubt about it in the cannabis space.
Yeah, yeah. Oof, yeah. All right. Let's see.
But also back to the taxes, though,
Oh
you got to
yeah.
make sure with your book set up so you got all your taxes paid on time, and you got to have those tight books so when you do get audited, you're able to prove your numbers in a sense. It's not
Mm.
back of napkins or a loose piece of paper in a folder. You've got a real set of accounting books that are closed each and every month, and you've got all your entries that you can prove to the IRS or the auditor that everything is legit.
In your experience, dealing with different companies and you dealing with the IRS, do you see them kind of treat cannabis companies differently than they would have, let's just say, like a non-plant touching business or anything?
I'd say that they probably, if you're in the cannabis space, they're already your target. Let's just put it that way. Even if it's an ancillary or if you're plant touching. But the ancillary, of course, has a lot of expenses they can, of course, write off. They're more of a normal business than the plant touching. But the IRS is continuing increasing their audit, or their force, we'll call it, for doing these audits, and so it's only going to increase because they know it's. They know there's money to be had. Let's put it that way from the IRS perspective.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. They're going to get theirs.
Oh, yes, exactly.
All right, let's look at this one. Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate that one. We have another question here from Gunner. I've been to different states researching the cannabis industry, and one thing I've noticed is that there are so many different products someone could buy at a dispensary. It could be overwhelming. How does the business decide what they're going to? So that kind of going back to what we had talked about before. Just going back and deciding what you're going to sell and everything. Let me ask you this: um, how would, and I know you're talking about demographics and things like that, what are ways people can, when we actually start getting this information and everything and all these trends, what's a way people can get the information on the demographics?
Well, like I say, there's a lot of companies out there that provide demographics. BDS Analytic is one. Headset, New Frontier, and there are other ones out there that provide data on the consumers and what they're purchasing. So that was what I would start paying attention to. But unfortunately, since there's nothing for Mississippi right now, you have to just kind of look at like markets in a sense. If I got a person 21 to 30 male that's making X amount, these are their hobbies or whatever, we kind of understand what their preference is going to be. Where if we're
Yeah.
dealing with, say, 55 or older, their preference may be totally different on the way they consume it. Some may want to drink it, some may want to eat it, some may want to smoke it. So just understanding what other like consumers in other markets are their preference at this point, until you get real data in the state of Mississippi.
Mm, okay. Okay. And now I will say one thing, and just my personal experience, going to different states that's
Right.
legal and everything, flower seems to still be king everywhere.
It is, pre-rolls is something that's really been taking the market here recently. It was, the concentrated vapes, but all of a sudden the pre-rolls are really starting a good part of the market share. Beverage over time is going to be a good piece of the market share in general. Beverages are going to be more like a sociable edible, we'll call it. So that onset's a little quicker, so you can enjoy, like an alcohol type drink. So that market's going to be coming on. It just takes time because of the flavor issue is mostly been their setback.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
oncoming effect, right?
So with, and down here we like to eat in Mississippi. Like that's one thing we do. So I do really think that the edibles are going to be something that's going to be very popular here.
Right, right,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right.
And be careful with those. Is all I'm going to suggest to all the consumers out there. Don't be one of those that take one and take a few more, and next thing you know, you have a bad experience. That's not a good
Yeah.
way to start. So ease into the edibles and understand exactly what your body needs and wants.
Yeah. You don't want to just go off. on the deep end. Follow the instructions. And also, when you're in a dispensary and you're talking to the staff and the people there, make sure they know, like, you can ask them questions, and I'm going to assume a lot of that will be happening now, especially in
Of
this
course.
new market with a lot of people who've never been in a dispensary or never really, tried it.
Right.
They have people there that are trained, that
Hmm.
are knowledgeable, that can tell you, that can assist you with what you need and what you want to get, and can suggest different things. So please, when they tell you to, hey, this is the dosage for it, they
Right.
tell you, hey, eat half, wait 45 minutes or to an hour. If you don't feel anything, eat the other half, and that's it. Then do that. Yeah, don't
Right.
don't just swallow an entire brownie or anything like that. No.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great guidelines, but again, everybody's going to function different, and that's the
Yeah.
whole point.
Yeah.
You can always add to it. It's hard to take it away once you've consumed it.
Hard to take it away. It is hard to take
You
it
know,
away.
you got to enjoy the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Gunner. Gonna look at this one. I've heard about how difficult banking can be in the cannabis industry. Can you explain some of the ways I can find secure banking for my business? David L. Yeah, and we were talking about 280E, but also cannabis is still federally illegal. There are bills, in the Senate right now that deals with cannabis banking and everything. But just let's talk about that, because a lot of people are going to, need it. A lot of people don't understand how much cash is actually just used at these dispensaries and these different
Right.
businesses and everything. So yeah, what's some safe banking or some ways they can deal with that issue?
Well, just know it's going to be a challenging and expensive, but banking is an absolute. I don't know what banks in the state of Mississippi or credit unions now have decided to bank in the cannabis space or not. However, if not, there's other companies out there that do the compliance on the front end that feed into these support banks. Now, these banking services will provide you, normal check writing, account, ACHs, these types of services. No loans by no means, but they at least provide you other banking services. There is a fee for that, a monthly fee. And then the cash is the big thing. How do you get the cash in the bank? Well, you'll have to retain an armor service. Of course, there's a fee for that. And then most of them charge so much basis points on the cash that you're receiving. And please understand, from a safety perspective and also just being able to prove your numbers again, back to being audited, a bank account is so important. Now, when you look at how much cash you may be dealing with, just think about, again, back to the number of transactions you're looking at to do a day. If you do 50, let's just call it 50 transactions a day at the dispensary, let's call it $80 for an average, then multiply that times seven or whatever. You're seeing how much cash you're going to have in general always in that facility. Of course, you're going to keep it in a safe, but again, you got to get it in your bank account so you can use it to pay bills and payrolls. So getting a bank account is going to be very challenging, but just know that you definitely, there are providers out there that provides this front end compliance that feed into a bank. And you can do bill paying, vendor pays, everything. And I highly suggest searching and sorting these out and pay the money. It's well worth it just for the safety and the time, and also the record keeping.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure you got tip top records. You want to make sure you got some access to banking, but it just seems like, well, I would hope that people can figure out that there's a lot of oversight and a lot of regulation to this. So yeah, you want to make sure your paperwork is top tier. You want to make sure you're dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's for sure.
Oh yeah, because compliance with cash handling is so important. But all the way to the funding, but back to the being audited, or the paying your taxes, to be, if the state comes out or the IRS, this bank is so important because all your funds are going in there. You don't have a cash box and you've got receipts and all this. You have that bank statement, and where it's going to really help you in 12 months, let's say that you're in business, you actually can get debt funding now in the cannabis space at a lot normal rates than before. We used to see them, 25 to 50%. We're
Mm.
seeing more now, 10 to 15% range, as long as you have 12 months of bank statements. So that's why, it's important to be sure to get that bank relationship set up as soon as possible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just a lot, and
Oh,
you
it
know,
is.
yeah. And before I had a lot of people, when they would contact us, they were kind of, just, hey, I have a shed in my backyard and a dream. I'm ready to get at it. And I would say, no, it's not like that. Like, this is a full fledged, like,
Right.
business. This is a full
Hmm.
fledged industry. So
Of
yeah,
course.
it's a lot. It's a lot more to it than just growing.
Yeah, and it's heavily regulated in compliance. And when the state starts coming out and doing inspections and audits after up and operating, it's going to be very challenging. That's when it's going to be so important to have that foundation built from day one, from your compliance perspective. I come from the securities industry, so I'm very familiar with highly regulated industry, and this cannabis is even more. And a lot of the operators don't really take it as serious as they should. So that's one thing I would say: make sure you're very tight on your compliance. Otherwise, that could easily put you out of business. You lose your license, and then what do you have?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Losing your life. I think no one wants to lose their license. I don't
No,
think anyone here wants to. Yeah.
no, but it could happen. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so important to have the compliance and all the record keeping in place
hmm
from day one.
Um. So when dealing with these different businesses and everything, and you've been doing this for so long, and just you've seen states open before their medical program and everything. What's some things? And I know each state is different, but
Hmm.
it's still the same commodity and the same product and everything. What's something you've noticed once a state opens up, like just something you've kind of picked up on that happens in each state, if anything does anything like that?
Well, most of the states enjoy the revenue they receive from it.
Okay.
That's first and foremost. And once the program gets up and running, you always have the adult now trying to get pushed through. So that's what we'll probably see in Mississippi over the next 2 to 3 years, is trying to get the adult on the ballot going forward. But that the biggest thing I see is just they'll continue tweaking the rules and the regs, to help tighten the system up for them.
Yeah, because one thing, a lot of people when we were talking to people, they knew about Oklahoma, and they would say, well, Oklahoma is just the Wild West and everything like that. But with Mississippi, we already have seed to sale tracking in place. We already have an office in place for
Right.
medical cannabis through the Department of Health. It seems
Mhm.
like we have a lot. What not that it seems, but we
Right.
have more regulation already in place and a lot
Mhm.
of things already in place, regulatory matters in place to
Of
make
course.
sure everything runs correctly and Mississippians can get some really
Right.
good product.
Yeah, that seed to sell is so important. I mean, everyone hates it, but it actually can be a great tool for you for understanding, a lot of your production. Also doing audits, cross-checking versus your POS systems to understand again that everything is in line and there's no mishaps or miskeys, we'll call it.
Yeah. When it comes to testing, what's some of the things you like to see as far as testing facilities or like testing standards in the state?
When you say testing, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. You're talking about like a testing lab for all the products.
Yes.
Well, it all depends on then from the state what is allowed to be used in growing, what type of fertilizers or additives to make sure those are not in there. But there's all types of ways of growing cannabis that it cannot be. It's not healthy for you. Let's just put it that way. So besides testing the THC, CBD, and the cannabinoids, people need to look at terpenes. Terpenes are more important than THC. So many people buy THC. What's the highest THC? 32%. That's what they buy, but it may not have the right effect or be the right for them. And so understanding terpenes is one thing I would highly recommend all the patients of Mississippi learn a little bit about, but also the testing facilities provide terpene profiles would be a great benefit for the patients of Mississippi.
Yeah, yeah, and you have the QR codes you can just scan,
Right,
and it brings up your entire profile right there, and you can
right,
see everything. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Oh yeah. All
And
right.
then as a consumer though, you kind of keep up with that, so you
Yeah.
understand what works for you going
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Yeah, for sure. Because again, everyone's body is different, so you got to
Mhm.
make sure again what works for you works for you.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Because everyone goes off of sativa or indica. Well, I know a lot of people that consume sativa and they go to sleep, and sativa is supposed to get you up. So
yeah,
again, it's all about what works for your body, what your system needs.
yeah, yeah. All right, so those were all of the questions that
Okay.
we had sent in. I want to thank everybody that sent in questions. Um, do you have anything else you wanted to kind of like explain to people or offer to people if they, need your contact or anything like that? Just this is the time you can give it to them.
Okay. One thing I like to say is don't go into this industry thinking you're going to make millions like so many people have thought in the past, and that it's a rude awakening. It's just a very long journey. It's very difficult. You're going to encounter all types of challenges and hurdles that you'll have to overcome, but you can do it by all means. But one thing I would highly suggest, I've seen so many mistakes out there with other operators because, again, they didn't start off having good guidance. And most of the problems I've seen could have been avoided if they had good legal advice, good accounting advice, and consultant work. But when I say consultants, I mean from people that actually has a track record, not someone that's read High Times or grown a plant in their mom's basement. And the money you pay these consultants and these professionals can definitely can save you tremendous amount of money and headaches going forward. And if anybody would like to reach out to me, feel free to. I'd love to help anyone I possibly can in that market. You can reach me at info@buffalocannabisadvisors.com or also at 501-529-7066. And Melvin, I don't know, can you post that? Uh,
Yeah, I will put that
okay.
in right now in
All
the
right.
comment section. Let me see. Do. Make that in there. I'll tell you what. I can put it in the description
Okay.
on the video. Yeah, I can put it in the
Okay.
description on the video, and we'll have
Okay.
your bio and all that, and people can just
Okay.
contact you
Cool.
from there.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks everyone this evening. Melvin, again, thanks for having me on. Thank you again for what you and MSCTA is doing for the state. Greatly appreciate it.
Okay, great. Hey, and listen, Terry, thank you for coming. Thank
Yes,
you for
sir.
helping out. You were at one of our big events, help at the panel for the licensing information that
Right.
we had in May. Just a
Uh-huh.
wealth of knowledge. I really thank you for everything you've
Right.
done in the industry, and just thank you for assisting us with everything that we do.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Oh yeah, you do the same. And that has been
All right.
another episode of Burning Questions. I am Melvin Robinson, Executive Director of the MSCTA. You can go to mscta.org to look at everything we do. Go to our resources panel if you are trying to open up a business, and you can look at checklists from the Department of Health, the Department of Revenue for everything you need. Also, if you're interested in becoming a member of the MSCTA, go to our members page. You can look at what each tier gets you, and you can just email memberships at mscta.org, and we'll try to get you in there as a member. All right, and again, this has been another episode of Burning Questions. I want to thank y'all for watching.